Good morning. Today we are looking at Exodus chapter 23. Laws of justice and mercy. Do not spread false reports. Do not help a guilty person by being a malicious witness. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. And do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to return it. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you fallen down under its load, do not leave it there. Be sure you help them with it. Do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Have nothing to do with the false charge, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds those who see and twists the words of the innocent. Do not oppress a foreigner. You yourselves know how it feels to be foreigners, because you were foreigners in Egypt. For 6 years you are to sow your fields and harvest the crops, but during the 7th year let the land lie unploughed and unused. Then the poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what is left. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive grove. 6 days do your work, but on the 7th day do not work, so that your ox and donkey may rest, and so that the slave born into your household and the foreigner living among you may be refreshed. Be careful to do everything I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods. Do not let them be heard on your lips. 3 times a year you are to celebrate a festival to me. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. For 7 days eat bread made without yeast, as I commanded you. Do this at the appointed time of the month of Aviv, for in that month you came out of Egypt. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Celebrate the festival of harvest with the first fruits of the crops you sow in your field. Celebrate the festival of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in your crops from the field. 3 times a year all the men are to appear before the sovereign Lord. Do not offer the blood of a sacrifice to me along with anything containing yeast. The fat of my festival offerings must not be kept until morning. Bring the best of the first fruits of your soil to the house of the Lord your God. And do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. Well, quite a bit to think about there. First of all, I suggest you reread Exodus 23, the first 19 verses. It does contain some very sensible ways to follow and to show the love of the Lord to those around you. But towards the end of our reading today, we are told that the Israelites were to celebrate 3 main festivals each year. They are Passover, or unleavened bread, the reaping festival, or Shavuot, and harvest, or Sukkot. The first you may know about already. It is the festival that Jesus shared with his friends and family every year, as any Jewish family does today. It is the festival where our Christian service of communion comes from. Passover remembers the angel of death passing over the Israelites' homes in Egypt and saving them from the death of the firstborn that God caused to happen on the Egyptians, after being promised time and time again by Pharaoh that he would allow the Israelites to leave Egypt, and he continually changed his mind. It reminds the Jews of the need to make unleavened bread in their rush to escape. And for Christians, it reminds us that Jesus gave his command to remember all that was about to come in the following 3 days, by sharing the bread and wine as his sacrifice of his body and blood on the cross and the resurrection 3 days later. Jesus chose one of the most important festivals to give us the most important sharing in our Christian lives, that of Holy Communion together as a people of God. However we may take that service, we are to share together the remembrance of Christ's sacrifice, death and resurrection. Easter is one of our most important festivals because Maundy Thursday reminds us of the Last Supper with his disciples and of his command he gave us to follow. Good Friday of his sacrifice on the cross, as well as Holy Saturday when he laid alone in the tomb, and of Easter morning when he was brought back to life by God and appeared to Mary Magdalene and the rest of his followers. And we are to celebrate his everlasting promise to us all, that if we believe in him, we will have everlasting life as well. Then there is the Jewish festival of Shavuot, the reaping festival. This occurs 50 days after Passover and is called Pentecost, which means the 50th day. And of course we have our festival of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit came and gave the disciples the power and ability to continue Jesus' work. It is often referred to as the birthday of the Christian faith, because it was then that the disciples took on the work of Christ. And the third festival in this reading is Sukkot. It means booth or hut, and the gathering of the harvest. For Jews, it is a week-long, joyous festival. The huts are of a temporary nature. They remind the Jews of the 40 days and their nomadic existence in the desert. It reminds Jews that nothing in life is permanent, so the key is in living life properly. For 7 days they eat and sleep inside these booths, as an expression of their history and fellowship with other Jews and their time before they found a place to settle. There are other rituals concerned with this festival, but again, we have a similar festival to remember the harvest given to us by God. If you were in church or listened online to David Primrose's talk at our harvest service this year, he reminded us that we are stewards of all we have and that we are called to use our resources wisely. And that means our food, our money, resources and this world. And if you didn't hear his talk, I recommend, if you can, to try and catch up on it online. We do need to remember that everything in heaven and on earth is yours. All things come from you, and of your own do we give you. 3 important festivals for Jews to remember and think about, and to us as Christians to remember and think about. The Passover meal, which became our Holy Communion, Pentecost, when our Christian church began, and harvest, when we should make sure we share all we have with others and are grateful for what God has given us.